Okay then, so let's walk through this new project step by step so that you know what each file or directory is for. And it doesn't really matter if you know in great detail at the minute what everything is for. I just want to give you the general lay of the land. So first of all, the top over here is where we have the node modules folder. This is a folder that stores all of our project dependencies and node packages. The React library itself is a node package and it's kept inside this folder, and any other packages that we install into our project in the future will also be stored in this node modules folder. Now you don't really need to go in here and do anything, just know that that's where all those packages are held. Alright, so next we have the public folder, and this is a folder where we'd put any files that would be made public to the browser. In our case, we have a couple of images in here, which are React logos, and we'll also be putting some public images that we use in our project in here later as well. We have a fav icon, which is the little icon shown in a browser tab. We have a robots file, which is for communicating with search engine crawlers. We also have a manifest JSON file, which is a bunch of information about our project, including a name, some icons, and theme colors. This is primarily used when a user installs a progressive web app onto their desktop. It's nothing specific to React, just like the rest of these public files aren't really either. But we also have our single HTML file in here, which is the single file served to the browser. Remember, if we have a single page application, we only get that one HTML page back to the browser from the server. If we open that file up and scroll down to the body, we'll see this div right here with an ID of root. This is where our React application will be injected into the page, and there's pretty much nothing else in this HTML file. So that's the public folder for files made public to the browser. Next up is the source folder. Now, this is where all of our uncompiled React source code is going to go. So any React components that you make are going to live inside this folder. In fact, 99% of the work that you do when you're making a React application is going to be done inside this source folder. And then when our app is compiled, it's all of these files in here that get compiled into a JavaScript bundle. We'll see more about that when we build our React applications later in the course, but for now, just know that any React content or components that we make are going to go inside this source folder. Now, currently in the source folder, we've already got a few ready-made files generated by Create React App. The first one I want to show you is the app.js file. This is a React component file. Typically, when you work with React, each component is going to have its own file. Now, inside this file, we can see a function called app with a capital letter, and this is just a component function. Remember, I said before that React components are just functions, and also that React components start with a capital letter. I'll talk more about this component in the next lesson. For now, I just want to move on to the rest of these different files. Alright, so next we have the app.css file, and this is being used to style the app component. And we've also got another CSS file, index.css, which is more of a global style sheet. We've also got this logo.svg file too, which is an image being used inside the app component. Now, I'll be doing a whole lesson in this chapter about using images and styles inside the source folder, so I'll come back to these then. Next, we have a few files for testing our React app and measuring its performance. The app.test.js file is for writing tests for our app component. And we also have a setup tests file, which is needed for our test files to work. Now, I don't want to focus too much on these for now because it's kind of beyond the scope of this course. So for now, I'm just going to delete both of these files because we won't be using them and I don't want them to become a distraction. Okay, so next we have a web vitals file, which allows us to measure the performance of our React application by analyzing certain metrics. And again, this is beyond the scope of this course and certainly not unique to React, so we won't be touching on this much at all during the course. So again, I'm going to delete this file so we can focus on everything else instead. Now, the last file inside this source folder is the index.js file, and this is the file that kind of kickstarts our React application. So inside it, you're going to see that we import our React DOM from node modules. This is how we import packages from the node modules folder. We're also importing the app component from the app file, and this is a relative path to the app file right here. The ./ bit means look in the same directory as this index file is currently in, and then it grabs the app file. Now, if you want to learn more about imports and exports in JavaScript, I've added a video about them in the JavaScript Helper Videos chapter near the end of the course, so feel free to check that out. Anyway, we're also importing the Web Vitals function right here and invoking that at the bottom of the file. Like I said, we won't be using that, so we can safely delete the import and also delete the function at the bottom as well. Anyway, also in this file, we can see the render method being used on React DOM. Remember, we saw this method being used in the last chapter, and what it does is take a component as a first argument and a DOM node as the second argument. Then it takes that component and it renders it to this node in the HTML page. So what we're doing is taking the app component that we've imported, and then we're rendering it to the element with an ID of root in the HTML file. And if we open up that HTML file again, we should be able to see that element with that ID of root. So this is where our app component is being injected. You'll also notice that our app component tag is being wrapped by something called React.strict mode. This is also a React component, a built-in one, and by wrapping our app component, it performs additional error checks for us, and it will highlight those errors to us at runtime, so it's good to keep that in. So this index file kickstarts the React app by taking our app component and rendering it to this position in the DOM. That's what this file is for. And finally, at the bottom, we have a few more files. First, we have a gitignore file, which is for version control. We have a readme file, which basically just tells us how to run and build the app. And finally, we have some package files, which are for tracking dependencies. By dependencies, I mean packages that we install into our project and that are stored in the node modules folder. These files also keep track of the versions of those packages we're using as well. Notice inside the package.json file where it says dependencies, we have React and React DOM, and both of their version numbers are listed. Inside this file, we can also see some scripts that we can use, one of which is for running the application so we can preview it in a browser, and that's what we're going to do in the next lesson.